James Frank Dureya was an American inventor and engineer who, together with his brother Charles, invented the first gasoline-powered car in America. James was born in Canton, Illinois, in 1869. Towards the end of the 19th century, James followed in his brother Charles' footsteps and started working in the growing bicycle industry in Washington, D.C., eventually moving to Springfield, Massachusetts. In 1886, Charles Dureya saw a stationary gasoline engine at a state fair and thought that such an engine could be powerful enough to move a wagon. It took him and his brother a few years to design and construct the first car and gasoline engine, and in September 1893 they managed to run the first test in the streets of Springfield. The vehicle traveled around 300 feet before coming to a halt due to belt transmission failure. More problems, including ignition and carburation issues, quickly emerged, and took the brothers a lot of fixing and more tests before achieving what could be considered the first successful test in January 1894, when Frank drove his updated car on the streets of Hartford, Connecticut. Thanks to the contributions of private investors, the Dureya brothers were able to establish the Dureya Motor Wagon Company in 1895. In November that same year, the first automobile race on American soil took place. It was a 54-mile race between Chicago and Evanston and back, an event sponsored by the Chicago Times-Herald newspaper. The car industry was so new in the United States that the magazine editors couldn't agree on what to call the vehicles taking part in the competition. Several options were brought to the table, like automobile carriage, vehicle motor, and horseless carriage. Eventually, they settled for motorcycle. Despite nearly 100 entrants registered for the race, only 6 turned up at the start on the morning of the 28th of November. 4 four-wheel vehicles participated in the race. 3 Benz cars from Germany and Frank Dureya's own car. The race was run in awful weather and road conditions, in near-freezing temperatures and muddy roads. After over 10 hours of racing, it was Dureya's motorized wagon that crossed the finish line first, at an average speed of 7 miles an hour, an hour and a half ahead of the Benz entered by Oscar Mueller. The race was considered a success, as it led to an increase in interest and investment in the automotive industry. Dureya's gasoline-powered vehicle had outperformed 3 German cars as well as 2 electric cars, which translated in great publicity for his and his brother's company. Frank returned to his shop in Massachusetts, and in 1896 he built 13 gasoline-powered vehicles, identical cars to his race-winning design, making it the first cars to be built and sold in the United States, marking the beginning of the automotive industry in America. The Dureya brothers had realized the importance of car racing to boost their car sales, and in 1896 they entered 2 of their cars in the London to Brighton race, also known as the Emancipation Race, marking the first appearance of an American car in Europe. Dureya's motor wagon reached Brighton first, over an hour before the second finisher. At the end of the century, the 2 brothers went their separate ways. In 1901, Frank founded the Stevens Dureya, a car company that built and sold thousands of vehicles until 1927, when production ended. Frank served as chief engineer and vice president until he retired in 1915. Frank Dureya died in Saybrook, Connecticut, in 1967 at the age of 97, after leaving an indelible mark in the automotive industry in America and around the world.